All right, we're live.
Nice. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. If you're just catching us, or you're going to be catching us, don't forget to catch the replay. We added a little bit of flair to the beginning of our our live
Flair.
stream. Something that I've used my extra time to mess around with and play around with. So, welcome,
COVID
everyone.
creativity.
That's right. That's right. Welcome everyone to Sunday Mic Check. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope you had a great week. Don't forget to hit us up in the comments. Say hi. Let us know you're here.
Yeah.
Throw any questions, whatever.
Hopefully people will start waking up about now.
Right. Our East Coast friends probably been up for a while.
Oh yeah, right. Hopefully they've been awake. I mean, it is Sunday morning and not a lot going on.
Right. Except for the countless church streams on your Facebook feed.
Yeah. Did you see the Saturday Night Live did a thing with Zoom Church?
Oh yeah, the Kenan Thompson sketch. I saw that this morning.
It's pretty good. I got about halfway through and was like, okay, I got to get this other stuff done before getting on Mic Check. So I look forward to watching the rest of it.
Right. He's my favorite. I loved that one. That was perfect.
And it's Mother's Day. So
right. It is Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day to all the moms and those who mother, which isn't limited to just biological mothers. So
right.
It's hopefully people are finding creative ways to commemorate, celebrate, or heal if that's more what you need to do today.
Right. Definitely. I'm thinking of those of you where this is not a good day. This is a difficult day.
Yeah. Well, some is, yeah. I mean, there's folks who had difficult relationships with their moms or their children. There's those. I have some very good friends who have died way too young, and so their kids and our kids are really good friends. I think about the loss of my friends who are also mothers and their children who must feel a profound sense of pain today, and then all those kids who maybe were hurt by moms.
Right. And all those out there struggling with infertility issues.
Yes.
My partner and I were there for a long time. So
Yep.
It's a difficult time. So hopefully this is
but there's also a multitude of reasons to celebrate, right?
There is. There absolutely is.
The recognition of struggle isn't to take away anyone's joy or celebration.
Right. So in the meantime, we're just gonna, freeform our conversations, talk about what we've been doing this week, hear from you, let us know what you think, let us know how you're doing in the midst of everything still going on. I know some places around the country are starting to slowly open up again, and I'm curious to hear some thoughts from people. Yeah. I mean, we're in California, so our governor is getting renowned praise for the way that he's handling it, or get him out of office kind of thing. So, and in each area, and Rajiv and I are in very different parts of California. So I think that they're handling those opening up measures very carefully, or not so, depending upon where we're at.
Yeah. As far as our area goes, Sacramento area, we're behaving pretty well overall. We got some folks that have tried to, or have gotten to the Capitol building with their show of, I don't know, they might think it's force. Some of us think it's silliness. And the governor has basically shut down the Capitol. And so folks over, I guess yesterday, they gathered on the sidewalks. They couldn't get to the actual grounds. And they're complaining. They're like, we can't even get, there's folks, local people sharing videos on social media. And it's, I think it's funny and sort of like, come on, grow up.
Right.
Sort of way. But they're out there because they feel like they have a cause, which is what I'm not sure. But
they want a haircut. So
want a haircut. Yeah. What else? What else is up on the list? People want haircuts and go out to eat.
Go out to eat. I I understand obviously the underlining fear on there is like I need my job. I mean, this is obviously economically devastating. However, it's just
Well, that's what confuses me. Why aren't people talking about their economic survival?
right.
Like this is what's stressing me out, because there's ways to fix that. There are other countries who are given a check every month while the lockdown happens because they know it's less expensive than dealing with people who are dying.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's not a monetary thing; it's also the right thing to do. So
Right.
why the protesters aren't going, look, we have small businesses or we have jobs that we can't get to. We need to pay bills even during the lockdown because the bill collectors are still collecting.
Right.
To me, that would make a lot of sense. I'd be out there with them. Like, yeah, we need to have this fixed.
Right.
But
I 100% agree. I think it's shining and again, I'm not an economist. We're not here as, professionals. We're here as podcasters who have an experience in evangelical Christianity and the progressive Christianity, but this affects all of us, and I just feel like this is putting a spotlight on our economic system in general, and how we rely on it. And I think that this narrative of there's no money and can't help out, it's just passing the blame to various different people, when in reality we have a broken system that's based off of excess. Like, companies stock do well when they have way more than they need, and our economy is based on the ups and downs of the stock market. And I think that
yeah,
is problematic in so many ways. And a fraction of our defense budget would be very helpful right now, but it's just it's so frustrating and debilitating to know like what to do, and and frustrated at
hmm
the expressions of people's frustrations is it's one of those things. So my area here
right.
is pretty mild. I mean, we're not as densely populated as, like, we're smack dab in between the San Francisco Bay Area and the Los Angeles area, and we're just this kind of little island unto ourselves in a lot of ways, but we're a very big tourist destination. So a lot of our cases have been from people coming in out of town, and the locals seem to be pretty, pretty on it in terms of, I see mostly masks when I go to a grocery store or something like that.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's a slow burn in a lot of ways.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I keep waiting for the job creators to show up and fix all of this. The people that pull themselves up by their bootstraps.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, the people that have touted for years, well, it's your
right.
fault, you didn't save. How many businesses have
Yeah,
saved? How many businesses need to be bailed out?
exactly.
Yeah, it's how about everyone who's watching in the comments, and how is your area doing in terms of opening up or not opening up? We'll look for those. Remember that sometimes we don't get all the comments that come through this, but we're not ignoring anyone. We want to invite as many of you to speak into the conversation as possible. But in the meantime, learning a lot of stuff, watching a lot of new stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I just watched I think the first week we did this, we had one of our listeners mention that they were doing like an online film school sort of thing. They started a
Oh yeah.
Facebook group,
Right. Right.
and they they recommended a Hulu documentary series. It's like 13 or 15 episodes, and it like just literally goes through the history of film. It can be a little bit dry in terms of like the narrator has a certain cadence, but it's super great. I think I'm like 2.5 episodes in of this,
Hmm.
15-hour journey, and it's some stuff I knew and some stuff I'm learning a lot, and I'm appreciative
Cool.
so far that this person is including the film history that's outside of Hollywood, outside of like American, you
Right.
know, all that kind of stuff. It's still not as much as I'd like, but I have a feeling it's kind of ramping up to include more of that. But so far, it's been really fascinating. I'm really looking forward to getting into more of it.
That's awesome. Oh hey, Alan.
Ah, Alan, joining us once again on the other side.
Speaking millennial, is it?
It is a millennial.
With the U? I don't even know what that is.
I think it's Yo.
I'm too Yo? Oh.
Yo. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I like the new. Yeah. I like the new. Oh, there he goes. He's speaking elderly now. Good morning, peeps. I appreciate that. But I do like his new. I don't know. What do you call that? A cartoon? Not a cartoon. Yeah, it's a cartoon.
Caricature.
That's it. Yeah, it looks really cool.
It does. It does.
Did he do it himself? Do you know?
No, I think if you go Alan's.
Did you do that yourself, Alan?
Open on Facebook. He has an artist that he knows that is raising money for something, I believe.
Very cool.
So yeah. So I think he has a post on his Facebook page. Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, where he talked about this artist is doing caricatures to raise money for something, or I'm not sure what it is, but yeah, it's really great.
Yo is like from the 80s, dude. Where do you think I'm from?
Alan, just because you were born in the 80s and didn't
I was there,
experience them. Although I can't talk too much. I was born in 79, but I have a lot of memories from the 80s as a child.
Or you have memories about the 80s.
Okay. Alan says the artist is raising money for NorCal Resist.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So yeah, if you're curious, Alan, just throw a link.
Yeah, throw that. Yeah.
In the comment, so if people are catching the replay or whatever, that they can check that out.
That'd be way cool.
It's a really cool portrait caricature. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I miss the cabbage though.
Yeah,
I do miss the cabbage.
Right. They work for Immigration and Justice. So if you're curious about that particular organization, you can check that out as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, Alan's had many. We're going to talk about Alan now. Many profile pictures over the years, but the lettuce is definitely the most long-standing, I think, and one.
Oh, it's lettuce.
Well, yeah.
I thought it was cabbage.
I don't know. It's all the same to me. It's leaves that you put more delicious stuff on top of.
Right. And none of which belong on pizza.
Rajiv.
We had to go there. Hey, I've been thinking a little bit about some things, with the stuff that's going on in the news, like just the violence. Ahmaud, who was killed, and luckily those guys are going to face trial. At least, hopefully, they're charged to the full extent of the law. But some of these things, there's a book that I pulled out and dusted off. Try to hold it up here if I can do that. Oh, where is that? There it is. God is Red. This is a great book. It's by Vine Deloria Jr. It was first printed in 1973. And we talk about people's various theologies informing how they live life. And the notion of a white God hasn't been held by most people around the world throughout history, but it's like a new notion to sort of the white supremacist idea of God and like the powerful do everything. This is a great read for anyone who's interested in learning about theology from a non-white centric perspective.
That's really good.
And it's one of many. But in doing so, then you see the world differently. You have to, because God doesn't look like you.
Right.
Or you recognize that my God might look like me, but my friend's God looks like them. Right.
Yeah. And we have to start somewhere. I mean, there's a lot of great resources out there, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of places where we can get those references. I remember when I had to kind of add to my book and theology collection. I started with what I knew. I started with the reference section of the books that I already had, and I noticed that there was just a perpetuation of other white European Western theologians, and I had to really work hard outside of that, without at the same time putting burden on the people of color to do the work for me, to find those people and tell me what to do and tell me where to go, but really put the work in. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that was able to discover some of that stuff myself. But I'm also thankful for people that helped me along the way.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's kind of a tough process if you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And to try to learn about what you don't know is a challenge, but it can, it's a challenge for sure. But reach out. Luckily, there's social media available today.
Yes.
Crowdsourcing information like that is good. I'm trying to get on our Facebook page feed so I can post the link to getting the book from bookshop.org rather than the big giant who's could be paying people better but isn't during this time.
Right. Right.
So I have a hard time chewing gum and walking, so I'm going to be semi-distracted while I'm getting this link up. I have the link. I'm just trying to get to our other page.
Yeah, this ecosystem is interesting, and you're probably watching it like 30 seconds behind what we're doing here. So, yeah, we'll get that link in the show notes for sure, especially for those of you that are rewatching this. And just as a reminder, kind of as we're talking about that, if you're a regular listener of the show, we always do the best we can we do the best we can to make sure that any book that we mention on the podcast is always in our show notes, and there's a link there to find the best place to check it out. So if you're ever curious about that, or if we ever miss anything, you say, hey, you mentioned this book in this episode and I didn't see a link in the show notes, please let us know, because we can easily update that to make sure that we really genuinely want our episodes to be a continuing conversation for everyone, and that part of that is the resources that we give through the links at the bottom to make sure that you have a one-click way to get to some of the books that we mentioned. So
exactly. So I'm not having much luck. I will do it after the fact. I'll post that link.
You can put it in the comments for sure.
Yeah, I will do that.
Yeah, so it looks like it's a slow morning, but still, it's always fun.
Well, I mean, it's Mother's Day, dude.
It is.
There's probably people getting breakfast in bed made, some of which people have to fake their way through.
Right.
As far as it's like, oh, this is so good. It's like, oh my God, what is this? This is so good. This is the best whatever it is that I've ever had.
What did my child do to me?
And then there's other things that are probably downright just delicious. So it's like the joys of having breakfast made for you by people who are not breakfast experts.
Right. And breakfast is, I don't subscribe to the notion that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, because to me that limits where breakfast can be consumed, because I think breakfast food is the best food. Like, I think breakfast food is sometimes best at night or whatever, because I think it's easy to prepare. It's delicious for the most part. I just love breakfast. I could eat it all the time.
I love breakfast food.
Mm-hmm.
If we, probably 50% of the time when we were able to dine out, if we went to a place that, had all day breakfast, 50-50 shot. I don't care what time, 8 o'clock at night, I was going to get some pancakes or a piece of French toast.
Right.
Some hash browns.
Absolutely.
Good.
Eggs. Mm-hmm. Oh man.
Well, sure. and there's no question anybody who's ever indulged in a drink or two more than they should have had, breakfast food is like the perfect
hangover food
way to cope with that. Cope with that lack of judgment.
Right. It's true. It's true. That I don't know if you saw the most recent DC comic movie, Harley Quinn.
Birds of Prey. Yeah. Loved it.
I loved that movie, but more than anything, like I always watch those movies late at night because I have to wait for my wife to get home from work to put the girls to bed, and then I always catch late night showing with a friend of mine where we catch all the late night comic book movies. And the sandwich in that movie was like the star of the movie, the egg sandwich that she kept trying
Oh
to get
yeah.
in the beginning. Like,
Yeah.
so
The way
so
they did the
hungry.
whole thing. Oh my god.
Everything.
It
It was
was good. Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Just perfect. You
Just
could
that
smell it, right?
you could. I was literally like I was looking around at the popcorn that was around. I was like, no,
Yeah.
I want
Yeah.
that right there.
That was good. That was
Oh,
good. Anybody giving us some breakfast food ideas? Oh, there we
yeah,
go.
chicken and
Chicken
waffles. I mean, come on. It's
now,
just
Caitlin, you're from the Atlanta area, right? I think if I
right.
remember correctly,
Hmm.
and that's some good chicken and waffle country.
Oh man, chicken waffles is so good. Like what a wonderful sweet and savory combination. Um
Mhm.
I was watching something. Someone was like they took some fried chicken skin and then they chopped it up and crisped it up and put it in the waffle. So like there were these little crunchy bits
Ooh,
of fried chicken
sort of
skin.
like the bacon waffle
Kind of, yeah.
trick with fried chicken skin. Yeah,
It looked good, but I wonder how crunchy
don't
they
know,
stayed in the
man.
midst of the batter. But yeah,
Well, and I'm age-wise, I'm at that point where, when I go in for my annual physical, the doctor's like, "So, how are your diet choices? Are you staying away from the, it's all the obvious stuff. Fried chicken's a big no,
hmm
and the skin is the worst part. But man, I love Popeye's chicken, the spicy.
I do. They're
Ugh,
the
so
hype
good.
over their chicken sandwich was
It
real.
was good.
It was so
I
good.
finally got one, maybe a few weeks before the close down, and was just like, "This is really," and it was huge.
Huge, and
I was expecting it to be kind of small.
I was too.
It was ginormous. It was delicious. The
Perfectly cooked. The airiness of the crunch that they
Come
have
on.
on there. Oh my gosh.
And I ordered it just, straight off the menu
hmm
because I'm not big on pickles on a sandwich. I like pickles standalone for whatever reason. I'm not big on them on a
Really?
sandwich, but I'm like, they work some magic here. I like Popeyes. And it was great.
It's perfect.
Most enjoyable pickle on a sandwich I've ever had.
hmm I like pickles on some things. Like a Cubano is probably my favorite sandwich of all time.
Mm,
And you just can't go wrong. Like you can't alter that in any way. It has to be the
yeah.
roasted pork, the ham,
Yep.
the pickle,
Yep.
the mustard. Um, I did this whole a few months ago now. I went to go make like because we had a potluck at my work, so I was like, I'm gonna make like these really big cubanos. So I took the big old sheets and got some really nice soft bread, and then I put like cast iron skillets to press it in the oven so that it cooked all of them at the same time. And
Wow.
everything. But the night before, I was like, I'm gonna do the whole thing. So I went all over trying to find the right marinade for the pork shoulder that I instead of roasting it, I sous vide it because it just time wise and our oven sucks. But I forgot to put the top on the sous vide thing overnight.
Oh.
So all the water had evaporated and it was exposed to the air. So it was like useless. So I had to do the next best thing. And I was like, went to this barbecue place and just got like some plain roasted pulled pork without them putting the sauce on it and use that instead. And it was still good, but it wasn't as good because you didn't get those like
Sure.
citrusy flavors of the marinade. But yeah, it's the perfect sandwich. I love it so much.
Yeah.
So much.
Well, what we do.
What we do for good, delicious, wonderful food.
But, trying to see if there's any more breakfast foods popping up here. Now I'm like dreaming of chicken and waffles.
I know, me too. Really, really good. I have such a hard time getting chicken right when I cook it myself.
Really?
Especially fried chicken. I don't know what it is. I always miss the mark. I need to maybe practice more. But
that surprises me, Jeff.
I know, me too. It infuriates me actually because I want to get it like exactly right. I mean, it helps with having the immersion circulator for the sous vide because you can get the exact temperature. But it's always the sear on chicken that I get wrong. I can never get the skin crispy enough. It's a help though. I recently got a carbon steel pan, and that is to me is the best thing in the world to sear something with. It's worked much better. So I've been using that a lot more. Rajiv found the
Oh, there we go. It got up there.
the comment. For those of you who are listening, before he mentioned a really good book. So there's
I'll
the
hold up the book again. It's
There
cool
we go. God is red.
picture on the front too. Yeah. So, what are you doing for Mother's Day today?
We're taking it pretty easy. I mean, we're not going out.
Well,
It's, you know, not even. I don't even know. I'm not even sure. We kind of take it easy and let my wife decide and take the day. The girls made some stuff as part of their school project, so they have like little gifts that they're gonna give to her, and yeah, so we're just gonna take it easy and take Cat's cue. What do you want to
yeah.
do? Where are we gonna go?
That puts some pressure on her though, right? Figure out what to do.
Yeah, a
Come
little bit.
up with the programming. Because I've thought through this stuff for a lot of years, Jeff.
That's really good because I know, and she's definitely not like a decision maker. Like, okay, I want to do this. Like, so yeah, that's true. That is a very good point. I'm always
Yeah.
conflicted. But
It's a hard balance to get it. I haven't succeeded yet. Well, I mean, I don't know what my mom thinks, but as far as being a spouse coaching sons, but yesterday was actually a really beautiful day. We did a lot of our, I guess, observance and celebration of Mother's Day yesterday, where Bonnie loves for us to be together, like phones are out of the picture, and just spend time. Anyway, we have 2 adult sons. They came over and we had some food, and we ordered some Thai food from a local place that we love, and did the curbside deal. Had that and just spend a lot of time together, just talking, reminiscing. It was really cool.
That's very nice.
It's really fun, which, is a very different scene than when you have kids who are 10 and 13 or 7 and 10, and their attention spans last so long. And then the energy turns into entertaining them versus,
right.
About mom. So there's challenges
For sure.
I'm feeling for those parents who are trying to juggle it all. And I wonder too, like I haven't ever asked any of my female couple friends, like in a 2-mom household, like how do they navigate like the brainstorming and the backroom dealing around Mother's Day?
Right.
Wonder how that goes down.
Yeah, because especially some of our non-binary friends, like with clearly these parent days are divided along gender lines, and how that works, or even just like how does that feel? I mean, I can't imagine. Yeah, it's I mean, there's so many reasons that it can be a tough day to maneuver, and
absolutely.
And that's just another one. I always thought a parent's day would be more fitting, but then I don't know. Maybe just each family celebrates each other the way.
I mean,
it's for them.
Yeah, it's certainly evolved because we're becoming more conscientious about the nuances and the difficulties. And wasn't Mother's Day originally a day committing oneself to nonviolence? It was like an anti-war day, right? Am I remembering that correct?
I don't know. I just assume all these holidays are created by the greeting card companies.
By Hallmark?
Yeah, exactly. Caitlin gave us a little bit of insight into her Mother's Day, celebrating Mother's Day tonight with some, I always forget how to pronounce that. The
charcuterie.
That's right. There we go. From an amazing restaurant, curbside pickup, of course, and fancy pizza and Chianti. Nice.
That sounds great.
Out for a stroll with the baby and Hubs now. It's a gorgeous day.
That's cool.
Very nice.
That's great. Hopefully the weather's great. Have the cicadas emerged yet? I hear that this year is the 17-year interval. I live back east. I grew up back there. So that interval where the cicadas come out in full force is like, it's crazy. It's, one of those apocalyptic kinds of things. So I'm wondering if this is one of those years. Because on top of all of it,
it already feels like we're in the midst of the 10 plagues.
Yeah.
Yeah, locusts and bugs and stuff like that. I could never do that. I don't do well with um invading nature. I mean,
Right.
I'm pretty sheltered though. I've been in California my entire life. I've never lived anywhere else. And the older I get, there's more of a reason behind that because I love
Hmm.
it. And when I visit someplace, I'm like, oh, this is great. But um, long term, I just love where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Caitlin answered you, not yet. It's cold in May right now. Everything is off, but I'm
Oh,
hoping
it's still
it's cool.
cold?
It's a
Yeah.
slow
So
spring.
one of my friends from back east was saying they might get snow this weekend or this
Really?
week. Yeah. In Maryland.
Hmm.
So
Well,
that's
we're supposed to have rain
crazy.
this week, right?
We are?
Early this week? Yeah, like Monday or Tuesday.
Not up here, I don't think.
Oh,
I
really?
don't know. I haven't been paying attention. It's been hot this week, like
Yeah, this
90s.
week. But then it cooled down real quick the last couple days,
Yeah.
or at
It's
least here.
pretty though, because it's not, we're not driving.
Yeah.
So the summer haze is like non-existent. The sky is so blue.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
sure.
my god,
I
it's
mean, we're
beautiful.
right on the coast, and it's just been
Well, yeah,
beautiful. All
yeah.
the not driving thing was weird because yesterday we filled up our car for the first time in like 6 weeks, and
Yeah,
we fill up at Shell station, and it uh gathers your points from your groceries that you buy. And we had like 70 cents off each gallon because we've been buying so many groceries but not driving anywhere. So it was like
right.
this. Oh, it was kind
It's
of a
like
pleasant surprise.
$6 for a full tank.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Wow. Yeah, there's so much about this. It's hard, and there's definitely adjustments in every way. People are hurting financially. Like we had a business that we were about to launch that isn't going to happen because of it. So there's a huge toll, but there's so much about how we're living right now that hints at a more right way
Right.
of living. So it's crazy.
Yeah, it's a give and take for sure. Caitlin responded, Northwest is supposed to get some winter weather. Our local weather is hitting a low in the 40s, way off for this time of year.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that is.
Well, I hope everyone is safe. Like it's not one of those crazy icy power outage sort of situations, but that everybody's
right,
okay and is already hunkered down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last
It's
thing,
just
crazy
it's just
weather.
weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Right.
Going back to what you were saying, it is an interesting time in terms of like there's a lot to learn, and a lot of things that I know just we took for granted. Like just nice having all of our meals centered around here, and and just I don't know, it's just a different vibe. There's definitely a lot of good things that I think once we start to go back to whatever normal is going to look like after this, there's certain things I think we want to hold on to in terms of how we're working through these things.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no question about it.
And we've had a lot of conversations off air about how this might change people's religious gatherings in
absolutely
very profound way.
Well, I one of the things that's really cool, and my wife is a pastor, so she's doing stuff on Sunday mornings in really creative ways to keep folks connected to where people can feel seen. And that's like most churches, most what are often called family-sized churches. Being together is kind of the point. It's like all the other stuff is important but secondary, but there's a real sense of community and family in the church we go to that she, which she does a great job of fostering. But that connection piece online is kind of hard because the content is by and large still there. The thoughtful sermons, prayer time, the content's still there, but something missing. But on the other hand, you get people now that are exploring all kinds of different places, um, and really enjoying a different way of doing things
Mhm.
and the virtual experience. So I think there might be more of a hybrid. I think we're going to value being together when we can in ways that we were undervaluing it before, but also have a broader view of the horizon as to what's out there to engage with content wise.
Right. Yeah, and I think that a lot of people with that content, a lot of these rituals, like for instance, Caitlin mentions what will communion look like. I mean,
Ah,
the time of the
yeah.
Eucharist is really fascinating because we have a lot of ritual and tradition that,
Yep.
at least in my experience on the mainline side of church gathering, has been pretty rigid in terms of what you can, experiment with and what you can, tool around with and play around with in terms of like keeping them the same heart and meaning to it, but being able to adjust the face of it. And I think that this has forced a lot of those churches to reevaluate there's other ways to do these things that we hold dear and not lose the meaning behind them.
Yeah. I think the way Bonnie's done it, which I think is not um, unusual. I think this is a lot of folks have done it this way, but they do the ritual element on the one end, but like the pre-emails and at the beginning talk about having your juice, your cup, and your bread ready, so that there's like a blessing given, and then the ritual of the tearing the bread and pouring the cup, and then people partaking in their own homes, which is it's one way
Mm.
of doing the
Right.
Eucharist at this time. But for me, it also highlights the not being together, because
Right.
we stand in line together. There's some music, and time for reflection as you're waiting to walk up and receive the elements.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it's too cloudy right now to have any sense of what the impact is going to be. And I look forward to the opportunities in the future that we will have to reflect and pick up and bring along things that we learned that were meaningful,
Right.
as we integrate, and then just leave some other crap in the past, because there's
That
just a
would be nice.
lot of shit that we do that we don't need to keep doing.
Right. Right. Like, I mean, even just the physical space that churches take up. I mean, how many things are they learning not to be reliant on their building so much? And the Sunday morning gathering, what that could look like. Especially now when, like we said before, more and more people are realizing what it was really about. It was never about the ritual as much it was about the actual gathering together and being with one another. And how conducive are most sanctuaries to that, really? I mean, there's still audience space. They're still set up and structured to consume,
Yeah,
not to connect.
but I think it has to be both. um and in a way, I think in the current moment we may not be identifying it, but like, I don't know if you've ever seen, this is old, um uh, relatively speaking, but Bill Maher did this mockumentary style thing called Religulous.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's got there's this one thing where he pulled together these groups that were trying to do like gatherings for atheists,
Hmm.
and the guy who founded it, they were like, yeah, we got together and like no one knew what to do. there
Right.
there was like no glue, no centerpiece for anything. So I think a recognition that both are necessary, one without the other is pointless.
Right. Yeah. But I think what we're realizing now is that we've placed one over the other in terms of importance and hierarchy. Um,
Yeah.
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 Uh, Caitlin says we've been doing communion that way from home. It's
Yes.
weird, but it also brings
Yep.
me some comfort just in sharing the experience in a way. It makes me feel connected to our church family more than just watching the service. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with you, Caitlin. I I echo that for sure.
Yeah. It's it's just a lot of it just wait and see, like watching to see how these things are going to evolve and what leaders are going to be innovative going forward.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think that you know, a lot of a lot of evangelical churches were more prepared for this because they've been more apt to utilize technology and utilize alternative methods. And I'm seeing a lot of my friends who are in mainline churches that are primarily led by older people really struggling to keep people connected during this time. And I think that that's uh I when I made the transition from evangelicalism into more mainline denomination, I went from a church that had some resources to a church that was older, that had to kind of you know they weren't projecting words on the screen, they weren't doing things that I was very used to in worship. And I remember hitting a lot of resistance, like, well, that's just not how we do it. Like, and then once we integrated certain things, like helping showing people like, oh, you can have kind of your cake and eat it too, in terms of there's a lot of things can heighten the things that you love so much about the way that your service is. And I think that that aversion to experiment, I've always said this, but I feel like in my mainline experience they were so open and flexible with their theology, but so rigid and inflexible with
Yeah.
their worship. Whereas evangelicalism is the opposite problem. I wasn't allowed to do communion once I got to more mainline denominations because I never got my MDiv and never went through the ordination process. But in evangelicalism, when I did communion, I used literally Oreo cookies and milk, because I thought that milk today is a more appropriate symbol of life than blood is. And I thought that one of my favorite passages to teach on was in John, the book of John, is that the actual Eucharist moment where they broke the bread and drank of the cup was not mentioned. It was all the surrounding events that were mentioned. And it was this up and down roller coaster of these intimate moments of Jesus washing their feet, up to betrayal, down to, a denial. So it was this up and down. And the way I read it was reflection of life, good moments, bad moments, and how, an Oreo cookie represents that. And when we're talking about our communion with one another, we're also talking about our shared experience that we go through life. And I thought that milk and cookies was a very appropriate symbol to highlight that moment. And I think I mentioned that once to someone at the last church I was at. It was more mainline, and I was literally like laughed at. Like, well, that's not how you do it. That's not how it's done. So
Yeah, I don't think there's a right way to do communion. You use what you have. The symbols have meaning, yeah, but have some thought, like what you're talking about. If somebody else was like Oreos and milk, like, okay, well, why? And if they're like, no, it would just be fun. Like, no, that's not a legit reason.
Right.
You've got like an underpinning to the meaning of a very accessible symbol,
Right.
in our current context. And it's very open and friendly to children, and children understand symbolism.
Right.
Their imaginations, if you take something, and there's lots of great opportunities with that.
Mm-hmm.
That
and they are often left out of the worship experience. And whenever
absolutely,
whenever a church says we want all generations to come worship, essentially what they're saying is, children, you need to submit to the way that we do worship, and we will not bend.
Yep. Way too often. Yeah, absolutely. Well, something, I'm a big fan of music. I listen to a lot of different kinds of music. I grew up playing the piano, and was in a couple of garage bands, but I love music. Something that I'm wondering, I'm actively processing this right now. It's like in the last 10 years or so, it's very developmental, is I have gravitated towards not trusting artists to fully influence me unless I know they're legit. And in my definition of what legit is can you strip everything down? Can they do an acoustic set, like with very little fanfare and splash, and it be a moving experience? Mm-hmm. And if they can, then I'm like, okay. And so my go-to right now is to check out the NPR Tiny Desk concerts.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
go through and like, holy shit, some of these people who, like, at first, like, I'll use Lizzo as an example because that's a very popular, she's a pretty highly produced pop star. And I was like, well, she's doing a tiny desk with, and I was like, oh my God, she like just rocked it.
Mhm.
I mean, this is somebody who is not just a performer. They can move you. She can move you. There's a lot of substance there. So that's just a little example. So I wonder theologically or church wise, is like now is a chance where things are kind of getting stripped down in a
Right.
way.
Yeah.
Like, and so who's actually got the substance that's moving you?
Right.
And that to me is like, that's, I think those are the people who are able to move you without the fanfare, without the big place, without the splash, that have a real opportunity to do something moving forward that ought to be listened to. And maybe these were folks that were overshadowed because they didn't have the budgets,
Right.
they didn't have the staff. um, so it'll be cool. I look forward to that. Having said that, I do enjoy going to places that inspire awe and reverence.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
And the warehouses just don't do that for me. Sometimes what happens inside a warehouse can be amazing, but the structure itself is like, okay.
Right. I just like a mix, and I just hate that everywhere. Like, because
Yeah.
during the latter part of my time in
Right.
evangelicalism, I was craving more tradition. So I introduced Lent the last 2 years to my youth group and what that
Yeah.
was and how we can incorporate that. Now, sure, I didn't do it like quote unquote right, but the heart of why it was there like struck me, and I wanted to do this. And then when I got to the other side and I was in more mainline, I was like, there's a lot of stuff that I did
Yes.
growing up in those segments that we could really incorporate
Yes.
here. And I know that there's an
Yep.
unfair stigma about them, but like it's certainly, especially right now, it's a lot more to maneuver. It's a lot easier to maneuver an acoustic guitar than it is a big old church organ, online. And I think that there's a lot that people missed out on.
I love our current church organist. She's really a piano player, a great piano player who also does organ. So, but the church organ for me is such a symbol of dominance and colonialism.
Mm, yeah.
Because it's like, we have brought our organ, we're going to colonize and settle you, and this is a permanent object. A lot of times in those budding churches, the organ was the big fixture, and
Right.
the building was built around it.
Hmm.
So I just have sort of my anti-colonial sentiment
That's very
as a
interesting.
resistance to the organ.
The one of the last like church pastor conferences I went to a seminar or a breakout session with someone who was leading a nomad church, and
Mm.
basically they didn't have a church building, and they purposely every month rented a new facility. So every month the location was different, and I was so fascinated by that concept of just like, wow, like you're really highlighting. Number one, I think you're highlighting the people, but number two, I think in that situation you have a lot more opportunity to honor the space, because you have to evaluate the space every time or every few times that you come and worship. And I
Yeah.
think that when we think about our time, I think we take space for granted. And I remember being in a lot of church meetings where I was like, well, yeah, that's a great idea, but our space doesn't allow that. What if we did this? Oh, well, we can't move that, or we can't,
Right.
put this here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, stop it. Like, yes, we
Right.
can. It has wheels. We can totally move it if we want to.
Yep.
And I just think that, yeah, I think really evaluating our space. And when I was running services, my thing was always like, well, let whatever the message for this week dictate the flow, dictate the order, dictate the pace in which we're doing. And then sometimes that has to flow from where we are in the world. Like, I think there's that fine line between when you gather together in church to kind of escape what's going on, but also at the same time acknowledge that you're still living in what's going on. And I think that there's it's a hard balance sometimes, but I think kind of going back to what you're saying, when you strip all that stuff away, it really reflects the heart of the leadership of that particular congregation on what things are going to shine when all this stuff is taken away, and where their heart is going to draw people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All of that is important.
I feel like we need to do an episode on church now that we're talking about this. I feel like it'd
Yeah,
be
yeah,
interesting.
that would be an interesting topic. I mean, especially on a Sunday morning.
Right. Get
Um,
everyone else's perspective, because at this point, I mean, you and I are the only non-active clergy on the team, and just to, because I know that there's logistics, and I know that there's
mhm,
boards and committees and all that kind of stuff that you
mhm,
kind of have to work through. But um, I think specifically of Casey and all the stuff that he's been doing and continues to do with his church, and you know the motivation that he has to work within those systems but still make lasting valuable change that's like working.
mhm.
um yeah, so there's
Yeah,
our
it's
church talk for Sunday.
yeah, yeah. No, it's definitely an interesting and challenging time
Yeah.
um, for for any established community.
Hmm.
I mean, workplace, faith house, families, networks. It's all. I mean, even in businesses, it's
Right.
everything's being asked to look at things differently.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a unique time. I guess we don't need to tell people that. we're
Right.
all living it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
think this was a good session. Thank you everyone
Yeah.
who joined us this morning.
And those of you that are off doing some good Mother's Day stuff in one way or another, we miss seeing you or hearing from you today, but hope you're having a great time.
Right. And don't forget, tomorrow is our continuing the conversation series. So we'll be talking
Right.
about the latest episode of Irenicast, the moral truth episode. So I'd be curious to hear some of your thoughts on there. If you can't make it, feel free to email us at podcast@irenicast.com and give us a question or thought or whatever regarding the episode. If you haven't listened to it, go check it out. I think this series has been one of my favorites in terms of the conversation and how it's kind of naturally come out, where every series that we've had on the show before this has been more planned out, and this is just something that just was flowing out of kind of where we were all at. In fact, yesterday we just recorded the last in the 4-part series of Truth that ended up being really like
It was
great
good.
conversation. It was
Yeah.
really, it felt like the right way to kind of close out that whole conversation. So I can't wait for you all to hear that in a few weeks. But in the meantime, we hope you're enjoying the show. And if you ever need anything or have any questions about what we're doing or where we're going, feel free to do that. All of our information is always in the show notes of every episode and on our website, irenicast.com. So I think that's all the calls to action.
That's it. That's it.
All right, Rajiv, enjoy the rest of your day. Everyone else, have a great day, and we will hopefully see you tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for
Yep.
continuing the conversation.
Yeah. Peace, love, and hugs, everybody.
All right, take care.